The ships appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's satellites showed nothing but stars and darkness. The next moment, 300 alien warships hung in orbit like dark clouds before a storm. People around the world stopped what they were doing. They stared at their screens, their phones, their televisions. The images were everywhere. Massive vessels, each one larger than any city, blocked out the sun in some places. Their hulls were dark metal, covered in weapons that glowed with strange purple light. At Camp Pendleton in California, Staff Sergeant Dae-Won Kim was cleaning his rifle when the alarm sounded. He looked up at the base's main screen and saw what everyone else was seeing. His hands never stopped moving. Years of training had taught him to stay calm when others panicked. "Marines, gear up!" his commanding officer shouted across the base. "This is not a drill." Dae-Won stood and grabbed his combat vest. Around him, younger Marines ran in all directions. Some looked scared. Others looked excited. Dae-Won felt neither. He had seen combat on 3 different colony worlds. He knew that fear and excitement both got you killed. What mattered was focus. Within hours, a message came from the alien fleet. It was broadcast on every channel, every frequency, every device on Earth. The translation was perfect, which meant these aliens had been watching humanity for a long time. The face that appeared on screens was not human. It had scales like a reptile, 4 eyes that glowed red, and 4 massive arms. When it spoke, its voice was deep and harsh. "I am War Prelate Thukran of the Hegemony Collective. We represent 12 species and control 40% of this galaxy. You are humans. You are new. You are weak, but you have spread to 17 star systems without permission. This is against hegemony law." Dae-Won watched the message on a tablet while his unit assembled. The alien continued speaking. "We give you 5 days to surrender. You will become a client species under hegemony protection. You will obey our laws. You will pay tribute. You will cease all military expansion. If you refuse, we will destroy your homeworld and every colony you have built. You have 5 days. Choose wisely." The message ended. For a moment, the world was silent. Then the noise started. People screaming. People crying. People praying. Governments tried to restore order, but chaos had already begun. At the United Nations building in New York, world leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. Admiral Hyun Park was there, representing the United Earth Defense Fleet. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years preparing Earth's defenses against threats from space. Now the threat had arrived, and he knew the truth. Earth's weapons were toys compared to what hung above them. "We need to negotiate," said one diplomat. "We need to buy time." "Time for what?" asked another. "They have technology we can barely understand. Our best warships would last minutes against them." "Then we surrender," said a third. "We survive and rebuild our strength over generations." Admiral Hyun listened to them argue. He said nothing. What could he say? Everything they were saying was true. The hegemony had never lost a war. Records showed they had conquered 40 species over the past 1,000 years. Humanity would be number 41. Dr. Minji Choi sat in a corner of the room, typing rapidly on her computer. She was the head of Earth's xenobiology program. For 10 years, she had studied every piece of alien technology and biology that humanity had encountered. Now she was analyzing the transmission, looking for anything useful. She noticed something. The way Thukran stood, the way he moved. There was arrogance there. Not just confidence, but pride. The kind of pride that came from never losing. That kind of pride was a weakness, but she did not know how to exploit it yet. On the 5th day, the UN Security Council agreed to broadcast a response to the hegemony fleet. They would ask for terms. They would negotiate. They would try to save as many lives as possible. Admiral Hyun Park would deliver the message, and a security detail of Marines would stand with him for the broadcast. Dae-Won was chosen as part of that detail. He stood at attention behind the Admiral, his uniform perfect, his rifle held properly. He knew this was just for show. If the aliens wanted to kill them, a rifle would not help. But Marines stood ready anyway. That was what they did. The broadcast began. Admiral Hyun Park spoke carefully, asking what terms the hegemony would accept, asking if there was room for negotiation, asking if Earth could remain independent while still following hegemony law. Then Thukran's face appeared on the screen again. But this time it was a live connection. The alien was watching them in real time. "You waste my time with questions," Thukran said. "There are no terms. There is only surrender or death. You are weak. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. I have personally defeated 47 warriors from other species in ritual combat. Each one thought they were strong. Each one died. You are no different. Something inside Daewon stirred. He had heard talk like this before. From pirates who raided colony ships. From warlords who thought their weapons made them gods. From bullies who relied on fear instead of skill. Without thinking, Daewon stepped forward. His commanding officer hissed at him to get back in line, but Daewon kept walking until he stood beside Admiral Hyun Park. "Staff Sergeant, what are you doing?" the Admiral whispered urgently. Daewon looked directly at the screen, directly at Thukron. The alien's 4 eyes focused on him. "You talk a lot for someone who's never fought a human," Daewon said. His voice was calm, steady. "You won't last 3 seconds." The room went silent. Every diplomat, every officer, every person watching the broadcast around the world held their breath. Thukron's face changed. The arrogance was still there, but now there was something else. Curiosity, amusement, and maybe, just maybe, a tiny spark of anger. "What is your name, small creature?" Thukron asked. "Staff Sergeant Daewon Kim, United States Marine Corps. You challenge me? I'm just telling you the truth." 3 seconds. That's all it would take. Thukron leaned forward, his massive arms flexed. The hegemony has an ancient tradition. Trial by combat. Champions fight. The winner's people prevail. I accept your challenge, Daewon Kim. If you defeat me, the hegemony fleet will withdraw and give your species 10 years of peace. If I defeat you, Earth surrenders immediately without any terms. Sergeant Kim, you don't have to do this. Admiral Hyun Park said quietly. Daewon never took his eyes off Thukron. Yes, sir, I do. Then it is agreed, Thukron declared. In 5 days we meet in combat on your moon. The galaxy will watch. Prepare yourself, human. You have made a promise. 3 seconds. I will enjoy proving you wrong before I kill you. The transmission ended. Daewon stood there, suddenly aware that billions of people had just watched him challenge an alien war leader to single combat. An alien who had killed 47 other champions. An alien whose species had conquered half the galaxy. Someone in the room started crying. Someone else started cursing. Admiral Hyun Park just looked at Daewon with an expression that mixed horror and respect. Well, the Admiral finally said, you better start training. You've got 5 days to back up the biggest boast in human history. Daewon nodded once. 3 seconds, sir. That's all I need. But as he walked out of the UN building, past the cameras and the reporters shouting questions, Daewon allowed himself one private thought. He had 5 days to figure out how to kill something that was bigger, stronger, faster, and more advanced than anything humanity had ever faced. 5 days to save the world. The clock was already ticking. The world changed in an instant. Daewon's face was everywhere. His 3-second promise became a rallying cry. People painted it on buildings. They wore it on shirts. They chanted it in the streets. But Daewon barely noticed. He had work to do. They flew him to a secret military facility in Colorado. The entire base had been converted into a training ground for one purpose, preparing him to fight Thukron. Scientists, doctors, tactical experts, and combat trainers all waited for him. Dr. Minji Choi met him at the landing pad. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick movements. She carried a tablet filled with data. Staff Sergeant Kim, I'm Dr. Choi. We have 5 days, so I'll be direct. Thukron is 3 meters tall. He has 4 arms, each stronger than any human. His reaction time is twice as fast as yours. He has cybernetic implants that enhance his speed and durability. He wears armor that can stop bullets, and he carries energy weapons that can cut through steel. Daewon listened carefully. What else? He's killed 47 champions. I've studied recordings of 12 of those fights. He's not just strong. He's skilled. He's been training for combat since birth. His species, the Kravik, are bred for war. Everyone has a weakness, Daewon said. What's his? Dr. Choi smiled slightly. It was the first time someone had asked the right question. His shield generator. The hegemony relies heavily on personal energy shields. They absorb kinetic and energy damage. But there's a flaw. After the shield absorbs a major impact, there's a recharge delay. 0.3 seconds. During that time, he's vulnerable. 0.3 seconds isn't much time. No, it's not. Which is why your 3-second promise might actually be accurate. If you can force a shield reset and exploit that window, you could end the fight very quickly. The problem is getting to that point, Day One nodded. Then that's what we train for. The next 5 days blurred together. Day One woke before dawn and trained until midnight. They built holographic simulators that mimicked Thukron's size and speed. They ran thousands of scenarios. Most ended with Day One dying in the first few seconds. But slowly, patterns emerged. Thukron favored his upper right arm. He always stepped with his left leg first. He was aggressive, always pressing forward. These were the habits of someone who had never needed to be defensive. Someone who had never faced a real threat. On the second day, Admiral Hyun Park visited the facility. He found Day One in the gym, practicing knife techniques against a hologram. The UN is going crazy, the Admiral said. Half of them think you're a hero. The other half think you doomed humanity with your pride. What do you think, sir? Day One asked, not breaking his rhythm. I think you saw something the rest of us missed. Thukron wanted this fight. If you hadn't challenged him, he would have found another way to humiliate us. At least this way we have a chance. A small chance. Better than no chance at all. The Admiral paused. I'm positioning the fleet. If you lose, I'm going to attack the hegemony ships immediately. We won't win, but we'll hurt them. Make them pay for killing you. Day One stopped training and looked at the Admiral. If I lose, don't waste lives on revenge. Surrender. Survive. Humanity needs to live even if it's under hegemony rule. Future generations can win the freedom we couldn't. Admiral Hyun Park studied the young Marine for a long moment. You're thinking about this wrong, Sergeant. You're not going to lose. But Day One saw the doubt in the Admiral's eyes. Everyone doubted. How could they not? This was impossible. On the third day, Dr. Choi made a breakthrough. She was analyzing Thukron's biology, specifically the placement of his organs. Kravik anatomy was different from humans, but certain principles were universal. The brain controlled the body, the heart pumped blood, and there were nerve clusters that, if disrupted, could cause paralysis or death. She found one beneath his lower rib cage, a primary neural junction that controlled his legs and lower arms. It was protected by bone and muscle, but there was a gap, a small space where a blade inserted at the correct angle could reach it. If you can hit this spot, she explained, pointing to her holographic model, his lower body will shut down. He'll collapse. The fight ends. How small is that target? Day One asked. 3 centimeters wide, 5 centimeters deep, and you'll have to strike upward at a 45-degree angle while he's moving. Day One stared at the hologram. 3 centimeters. While fighting something twice his size and twice as fast. In 0.3 seconds. I'll need to get very close, he said. Yes, closer than any of his previous opponents ever got. They all tried to keep distance to use range weapons. They all failed. You'll need to do the opposite. That night, Day One couldn't sleep. He sat in his quarters looking at photos on his tablet. His parents. They had died 12 years ago when pirates attacked the Titan colony. Day One had been 17. He joined the Marines 3 weeks later. He remembered his father's last words transmitted through a dying communication system. Don't hate them, son. Hate is easy. Being better than them, that's hard. That's what matters. Day One had spent 12 years trying to be better. Better than the pirates. Better than the criminals. Better than the chaos. Now he had to be better than an alien champion who had never lost. On the 4th day, Commander J. Lee arrived at the facility. He was a fighter pilot, one of the best in the fleet. He and Day One had served together on Europa 3 years ago. They had saved each other's lives more than once. Jay brought a bottle of whiskey. Technically illegal on a military base, but nobody was enforcing those rules right now. They sat on the roof of the facility looking at the stars. You really think you can do this? Jay asked after his 3rd drink. I have to, Day One replied. That's not an answer. Day One took a drink. The whiskey burned. When I was on Titan after my parents died, I found the pirate who killed them. He was bigger than me, stronger, armed. I had a broken piece of metal. He laughed at me, said I was just a kid, said I should run. What happened? I didn't run. I waited for the right moment. He made a mistake, got too close. I didn't need to be stronger. I just needed one opening. 3 seconds of opportunity. That's all any fight really is. Jay was quiet for a while. Thukron won't make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. The ones who never lose just don't recognize them as mistakes. They think everything they do is right because they keep winning. That's what I'm counting on. And if you're wrong, Day-Wan looked at his friend. Then I die. But at least I die standing up. At least humanity doesn't surrender without a fight. Jay raised his glass. To 3 seconds, to 3 seconds, they drank. Above them, stars glittered. Somewhere up there, the hegemony fleet waited. Somewhere up there, Thukron was probably laughing about the small human who thought he could win. Let him laugh, Day-One thought. Laughter makes you breathe deep. Deep breaths make you slower. Slower is vulnerable. On the 5th day, they flew Day-One to the moon. The hegemony had built an arena in the Sea of Tranquility. It was a massive structure, visible from Earth with a good telescope. They wanted everyone to watch. They wanted humanity's defeat to be public. Dr. Choi went with him on the transport. She went over the plan one more time. Strike the shield twice with your sidearm. Heavy rounds center mass. That forces a full reset. The moment the shield drops, you close distance. He'll expect you to shoot again. Instead, you go low. His lower right side is his weak point in close combat. He'll defend his upper body first. That gives you 0.3 seconds. Knife strike upward angle between the ribs. 3 centimeters target. I know, Day-One said quietly. I know you know. I just need to say it again. For me, he looked at her. She was scared. Not for herself, but for him. For all of them. 3 seconds, he said. That's my promise. 3 seconds, she repeated. Please don't die, Sergeant Kim. I'll do my best. When they landed on the moon, the arena was already filled. Not with people, but with drones and cameras. Billions of beings across the galaxy were watching. This was entertainment for some. A political statement for others. For humanity, it was everything. Day-Wan walked into the preparation room. They gave him modified combat armor. Light, flexible, with minimal plating, speed over protection. That was the plan. They gave him a sidearm loaded with special tungsten rounds designed by Dr. Choi, and they gave him a combat knife. Simple. Reliable. Human Admiral Hyun Park was there for the final briefing. The fleet is ready. Whatever happens, know that humanity is grateful. Tell them to save their gratitude for after I win, Day-One said. The Admiral smiled sadly. You're the bravest man I've ever met. No, sir, I'm just a Marine. We don't know how to quit. They led him to the entrance of the arena. Through the doors, he could see the fighting ground. Sand and rock. Open space, no cover, no advantages. Just 2 warriors and 1 outcome. His heart was pounding. His hands were steady. He thought about his parents. About Jay. About Dr. Choi. About the billions of people watching and hoping. 3 seconds. That's all he needed. 3 seconds of perfection. 3 seconds to prove that humanity deserved their place in the galaxy. 3 seconds to show the hegemony that size and strength weren't everything. The doors opened. Day-Wan walked forward into the arena. Across the sand, he saw Thukron waiting. The alien was even bigger in person. More terrifying. More impossible. But Day-Wan kept walking. His face showed nothing. No fear, no doubt. Just focus. The arena fell silent. Billions of eyes watched through screens and holograms across the galaxy. On Earth, entire cities stopped moving. People held their breath. Parents held their children. Everyone watched the small human walk toward the alien champion. Thukron stood in the center of the arena like a monument. His armor gleamed under the lights. Purple energy crackled across its surface. His forearms hung loosely at his sides, each one holding a weapon. Plasma blades hummed with deadly power. His energy shield shimmered around him like heat waves. Day-Wan stopped 20 meters away. He looked small in comparison. A single human in basic combat gear, carrying a handgun and a knife. It seemed laughable. Across the galaxy, some aliens did laugh. This would be over quickly, they thought. Another human crushed. Another species humbled. An announcer's voice echoed through the arena. It spoke in dozens of languages simultaneously. The trial by combat will now begin. Victory through death or surrender. No interference. No time limit. May the worthy prevail. Thukron raised one of his plasma blades. I will make this quick, human. You showed courage in challenging me. For that I will grant you a warrior's death. Day-Wan said nothing. He was counting. Measuring distances. Watching how Thukron distributed his weight. Looking for the tells Dr. Choi had taught him to spot. No last words? Thukron asked. No prayers to your gods? 3 seconds, Day-One said quietly. I told you. That's all you have. Thukron's eyes narrowed. Then he moved. The alien exploded forward with terrifying speed. His four legs churned across the sand. His blades cut through the air with a sound like screaming. He covered 10 meters in less than a second. Day one's training took over. He didn't freeze. He didn't panic. He moved sideways, not backward. Thukron expected retreat. Most prey ran away. But Day one angled left, forcing Thukron to adjust his charge. The plasma blade missed by centimeters. Day one felt the heat of it pass his face. He raised his sidearm and fired 3 times. Quick, controlled, professional. The tungsten rounds hit Thukron's energy shield dead center. The shield flared bright purple, absorbing the kinetic energy. Exactly as expected. Day one kept moving, kept circling. Thukron laughed. Your weapons are toys. My shield will protect me from anything you can throw at me. He charged again. This time he used all 4 arms. Blades came from multiple angles. High, low, left, right. It was a killing pattern that had destroyed 47 champions before. But Day one was already moving. He dove under the high strikes and rolled away from the low ones. Sand kicked up around him. He came up running, keeping distance. Not too far, not too close. Just enough. The crowd watching across the galaxy began to murmur. The human was fast. Faster than expected. He was still alive. That alone was impressive. Thukron's confidence flickered. Just for a moment. This human was better than the others. But it didn't matter. Size and strength always won eventually. Speed only delayed the inevitable. Stop running. Thukron roared. Face me with honor. Day one fired again. 1 shot, heavy round. Dead center on the shield. The shield flared again. Thukron felt the impact ripple through his armor. Strong for a human weapon, but still harmless against hegemony technology. Is that your plan? Thukron mocked. Waste your ammunition until you have nothing left? Day one didn't answer. He was counting in his head. Dr. Choi's research had been thorough. Each time the shield absorbed major kinetic impact, it drew power from a central generator. The generator could handle multiple hits, but there was a threshold. Too many impacts too quickly and it would need to perform a full system reset. He fired again. 2 more rounds. Both center mass. The shield flared brighter. Thukron stumbled slightly. The impacts were adding up. His armor systems were compensating, redirecting power to maintain the shield. Clever, Thukron admitted. You're trying to overload my shield, but you'll need more bullets than you have and I'll reach you long before that happens. He was right. In a normal fight, this tactic wouldn't work. But Day one wasn't planning a normal fight. Thukron charged again. His frustration was growing. This was taking too long. The galaxy was watching. He needed to end this. He needed to show dominance. His blades came faster now. More aggressive. Less controlled. There it is, Day one thought. The mistake. When someone who had never lost started to doubt, they tried to force victory. They got impatient. They made errors. Day one fired his 4th shot, not at Thukron, but at the ground directly in front of the alien's feet. The tungsten round hit the lunar sand and ricocheted upward. The angle was perfect. Dr. Choi had calculated it exactly. The round struck Thukron's shield from below, where the generator didn't expect impact. The shield flickered, turned red, and shut down completely for reset. 0.3 seconds. That was the window. Day one moved before Thukron even realized what happened. He closed the distance in 2 strides. His knife was already in his hand. Thukron saw him coming and swung with his upper right blade, but he was a fraction too slow. The shield wasn't there. He wasn't used to being vulnerable. Day one went low, sliding under the blade strike. Sand sprayed around him. He came up inside Thukron's guard, closer than any opponent had ever been. Thukron's lower arms reached for him, but Day one was already moving to the alien's right side. The weak side. The side where Thukron's balance was worst. Time seemed to slow. Day one saw the gap in the armor. Exactly where Dr. Choi said it would be. 3 centimeters wide. Between the ribs. He saw Thukron's eyes widen as the alien realized the danger. He saw the exact moment when Thukron understood that this human was different. The knife went in at a 45-degree angle. Up, deep, precise. Day one felt the blade find the neural cluster. Thukron's entire body went rigid. His legs stopped working. His lower arms went limp. The plasma blades fell from his hands and burned into the sand. The massive alien crashed to his knees. He tried to speak, but his voice wouldn't work properly. His nervous system was shutting down from the neural damage. Daewon stepped back. His knife was still in his hand, covered in purple blood. He looked up at Thukron's face. 2.8 seconds, Daewon said quietly. I gave you 3. You didn't even use all of them. Thukron's eyes showed something they had never shown before. Shock, disbelief, and perhaps, somewhere deep, a tiny amount of respect. The alien champion fell forward into the sand. He was still alive, but the fight was over. His body wouldn't respond. The neural damage was temporary, but the defeat was permanent. Silence filled the arena. Then slowly sound returned. On Earth, people erupted into celebration. Cities exploded with noise. People cried and laughed and shouted. They had witnessed the impossible. Across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some aliens were shocked. Some were thoughtful. Some were afraid. A species that could produce a warrior capable of defeating Thukron in single combat was not a species to be underestimated. Aboard the Hegemony flagship, Subcommander Vrix stared at his screen in disbelief. He had warned Thukron. He had said humans were dangerous. But even he hadn't expected this. He activated the communication system. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled slightly as he spoke. The trial by combat has concluded. The human champion is victorious. By the ancient laws of the Hegemony, we will honor our agreement. The fleet will withdraw. Earth is granted 10 years of peace. He paused, looking at the image of Daewon standing over Thukron's fallen body. We underestimated you once. We will not do so again. In the arena, medical teams rushed in to stabilize Thukron. Daewon stood still, watching them work. His body was shaking now, adrenaline wearing off, the reality of what he had just done crashing over him. Admiral Hyun Park's voice came through his earpiece. Sergeant Kim, you did it. You actually did it. The fleet is withdrawing. Earth is safe. Daewon nodded slowly. He felt tired. More tired than he had ever been, but he also felt something else. Pride. Not in himself, but in what this victory meant. They transported him back to Earth within hours. The journey was a blur. When he stepped off the shuttle at the UN headquarters, thousands of people were waiting. They cheered and cried and reached out to touch him. Commander J. Lee pushed through the crowd and grabbed Daewon in a hug. 3 seconds! You promised 3 seconds and you delivered. Dr. Choi was there too. She looked exhausted but happy. Your knife strike was perfect. Exactly the angle I calculated. 0.3 second window and you used it perfectly. Daewon managed a small smile. I had a good teacher. Admiral Hyun Park appeared with military escorts. They cleared a path through the crowd. Come on, Sergeant. The whole world wants to talk to you, but first you need rest. You've earned it. As they led him away, Daewon looked up at the sky. The Hegemony ships were already leaving. Dark shapes rising into space carrying their wounded champion and their defeated pride. 10 years. That's what his victory had bought. 10 years for Earth to prepare. 10 years to build better weapons, stronger defenses, and more alliances. It wasn't forever, but it was something. Later that night, in a quiet military hospital room, Daewon finally allowed himself to think about what had happened. He had challenged an alien war god and won. He had saved his species from immediate destruction. He had proven that humanity could fight above their weight, but he also knew this was just the beginning. The Hegemony would be back. They would be angry. They would be prepared. 2 years had passed since the trial by combat. Earth had changed completely. The scattered nations that once argued over borders now worked together with single purpose: build, train, prepare. The Hegemony would return, and humanity needed to be ready. Colonel Daewon Kim stood in a military transport checking his gear one more time. He was no longer just a Marine sergeant. After his victory, they had promoted him and given him command of something special. Ghost Protocol, an elite unit designed to operate deep in Hegemony space. Their mission was simple in theory, impossible in practice. Gather intelligence, sabotage enemy operations, and sow chaos among the 12 species that made up the Hegemony. Next to him, Captain Yoonji Nam reviewed mission data on her tablet. She was his second in command, a specialist in alien languages and infiltration tactics. She had learned to speak 4 Hegemony languages fluently, and could pass for 3 different alien species with the right disguise technology. We're 10 minutes from the drop point, she said. Once we're on Krell 7, we'll have 48 hours before anyone notices the missing supply ship we're using as cover. And if they notice earlier? Asked Private Taeyang Shin. He was the youngest member of the team, barely 22 years old, but he had scored top marks in every training program and specifically requested assignment to Ghost Protocol. He wanted to serve under the man who had defeated Thukron. Then we adapt, Daewon said calmly. We always adapt. Krell 7 was a hegemony weapons development facility on the edge of their controlled space. Intelligence suggested they were building something big there, something meant for Earth. Ghost Protocol's mission was to infiltrate the facility, steal data about this weapon, and escape without being detected. The transport ship shuddered as it entered Krell 7's atmosphere. Outside the windows, they could see the planet's surface. Red sand, purple vegetation, 3 moons hanging in a green sky. Alien. Hostile. Beautiful. They landed at a supply depot on the facility's outer edge. Yoonji's forged credentials got them through the first security checkpoint. The guards were Dravik, a species of insectoid aliens with compound eyes and quick, jerky movements. They scanned the cargo containers and waved the team through without much interest. So far, so good, Yoonji whispered. She wore a translator device on her collar that made her words sound like Dravik clicks and buzzes to anyone listening. They unloaded their containers at a storage bay. Inside those containers, hidden beneath false bottoms, were weapons, hacking equipment, and extraction gear. Once the guards left, they pulled out what they needed and moved deeper into the facility. The Weapon Development Center was 3 kilometers from the supply depot. They traveled through maintenance tunnels, avoiding cameras and patrols. Daewon had memorized the facility layout from satellite data. Every turn, every door, every potential threat. It took them 6 hours to reach the research level. By then, it was the middle of the facility's night cycle. Most workers had gone to their quarters. Only security patrols remained, and Ghost Protocol knew how to avoid those. They reached a sealed door marked with hegemony military symbols. Behind that door was the main computer core. Yoonji attached a hacking device to the access panel. Her fingers moved quickly across the interface. This is going to take 10 minutes, she said. Their encryption is tougher than expected. Taeyang stood guard at the corridor intersection. Daewon watched the security camera feeds on his portable screen. So far, no alarms, no unusual activity. Everything was going according to plan. But Daewon had been a soldier long enough to know that plans never survived first contact with reality. 8 minutes into the hack, footsteps echoed from the far corridor. Not a patrol. Too many feet. Too irregular. Daewon signaled for silence. A group of figures rounded the corner. Not guards. Not soldiers. Civilians. They were Lyran, a species that looked almost human except for their pale blue skin and large dark eyes. There were 12 of them, all wearing dirty clothes, all looking scared. One of them saw Daewon and gasped. The others froze. Please, the Lyran said in broken English. Please help us. We prisoners. They take us from homeworld, make us work here. Daewon's jaw tightened. Intelligence hadn't mentioned prisoners. This changed everything. 2 minutes until the hack is complete, Yoonji whispered urgently. We can't help them, Colonel. If we try to extract civilians, we'll never make it out. She was right. Tactically, the smart move was to ignore the Lyran, complete the mission, get the data, escape. That was what Ghost Protocol was trained to do. But Daewon looked at those faces. He saw fear. He saw hope. He saw people who had no choice in their fate, just like his parents had no choice when pirates attacked Titan Colony. How many prisoners total? He asked the Lyran. 43. All Lyran, all from our colony ship. They captured us 3 months ago. Taeyang looked at Daewon. Sir, what are we doing? Daewon made his decision. We're getting them out. Colonel, that's not the mission, Yoonji protested. The mission just changed. We extract the prisoners and the data, both. That's impossible, Daewon looked at her. 2 years ago, everyone said defeating Thukron was impossible. We're Marines. Impossible is just a word. Yoonji stared at him for a moment. Then she nodded. All right, but we're going to need a new plan. The hack completed. They downloaded every file they could about the weapon project. What they saw made Daewon's blood run cold. The hegemony was building something called the Null Cascade, a weapon that could sterilize an entire planet's surface in minutes, kill everything living, leave the infrastructure intact. And according to these files, they were building 3 of them. 1 for Earth, 1 for Mars, 1 for Europa. We need to get this data to command immediately, Taiyang said. This changes everything. We will, Daewon said. But first we get these people out. The Lyran led them to the detention block. It was in the facility's lowest level, built into the planet's bedrock. 43 prisoners, just like they said. All Lyran, all civilians, men, women, children, being forced to work in hazardous conditions, building weapons that would be used to conquer and kill. Our ship can't carry this many people, Yunji said. Then we'll steal a bigger ship, Daewon replied. There's a transport hangar on the east side. We saw it on the satellite data. They moved through the facility like ghosts. Daewon's team had trained for stealth operations for 2 years. They knew how to disable security systems, forge access codes, and eliminate threats silently when necessary. The transport hangar held several ships. Most were small cargo vessels. But there was one medium-sized personnel transport, big enough for all the prisoners and Ghost Protocol team. Can you fly that? Daewon asked Taiyang. I can fly anything with engines, sir. Good, get it prepped for launch. Hyunji, help me get the prisoners here without alerting security. It should have been impossible. Moving 43 people through a military facility without being detected was the kind of thing that only worked in training simulations. But somehow they made it work. The Lyran were quiet. They followed instructions. They trusted these humans who had come to save them. They were loading the last of the prisoners into the transport when alarms finally blared. We've been detected, Yunji reported. Security forces are converging on the hangar. How long until we can launch? Daewon asked. 2 minutes, Taiyang shouted from the pilot's seat. Then we buy 2 minutes. Daewon turned to his team. Defensive positions. No one gets through this door until that ship is ready. What followed was chaos. Hegemony security forces poured into the hangar. Traffic guards with energy weapons. Kravik soldiers in combat armor. The same species as Thukron. They were big, strong, and well-armed. But Ghost Protocol was better trained. They used the hangar's cover. They fought smart. Every shot counted. Every movement had purpose. Yunji disabled their communications, preventing them from calling reinforcements. Daewon coordinated the defense, his tactical mind working through each threat in order of priority. Taiyang worked frantically in the pilot's seat, bypassing launch protocols and firing up the engines. 30 seconds, Taiyang shouted. A Kravik soldier broke through the perimeter. He was massive, carrying a plasma cannon. He aimed at the transport full of prisoners. Daewon didn't hesitate. He threw himself at the soldier, tackling him just as the cannon fired. The shot went wide, burning into the hangar ceiling instead of the ship. They hit the ground hard. The Kravik was stronger, but Daewon was faster. He found the weak point in the armor, the same spot he had struck on Thukron. His knife went in deep. The soldier collapsed. Engines are hot. Everyone on board now. Taiyang's voice echoed through the hangar. Ghost Protocol retreated to the ship, providing covering fire as they moved. The loading ramp started to close. Daewon was the last one on board. Energy blasts scorched the hull around him as he dove through the closing door. The transport lifted off. Hangar doors were closing, trying to trap them. But Taiyang pushed the engines to maximum. They shot through the gap with meters to spare. We're clear of the facility, Taiyang reported. But there are 3 patrol ships moving to intercept. Can we outrun them? Hyunji asked. Not with this much weight. This ship wasn't designed for combat or speed. Daewon moved to the cockpit. He looked at the pursuing ships on the sensor display. They would catch up in minutes. The transport had no weapons. This was going to be close. Year 10 arrived like a hammerfall. The hegemony fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. This time there were no messages, no ultimatums, no offers to negotiate. They had come for one purpose: conquest. General Daewon Kim stood on the bridge of the Ued Zinchan, Earth's flagship carrier. Through the viewport he could see the enemy fleet. 900 warships, 3 times larger than the force that had come 10 years ago. The hegemony had brought everything they had. Fleet status? He asked calmly. 200 warships ready, sir, reported the tactical officer. Orbital defense platforms at full power. Ground-based particle cannons charged. We're as ready as we'll ever be. But ready wasn't enough. Everyone on the bridge knew it. The math was simple and cruel. Earth had spent 10 years building, training, preparing. They had turned their civilization into a military machine. And it still wasn't enough to match the hegemony's raw power. Admiral J. Lee appeared on the communication screen. He was aboard the UED Soul, commanding the fighter wings. His once youthful face now showed the lines of a career warrior. Fighters are launched and in formation, Jay reported. We'll hit them first, try to take out their forward carriers. Buy you some time for the main fleet. Negative, Day One said. Stay in defensive formation. We need you to protect the orbital platforms. Day One, we can't just wait for them to hit us first. Trust me, old friend. We have a plan. Jay looked skeptical, but he nodded. Roger that. Soul out. The enemy fleet began its advance. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of destruction crawling across space toward Earth's defenses. High Commander Vrix led them personally. He had spent 10 years planning this moment. 10 years studying humans. 10 years preparing for revenge. On Earth's surface, Dr. Minji Choi worked in a bunker deep beneath the Pacific. Around her, teams of scientists monitored thousands of screens and systems. They had spent 10 years on a secret project, something the hegemony didn't know about, something that would change everything if it worked. Status on the virus upload? Minji asked her lead programmer. Ready for deployment. But General Kim needs to get close enough to their command network for it to work. Within 500 kilometers of their flagship. He knows. He'll get there. Dr. Choi, even if this works, the virus only gives us 60 seconds. That's not enough time to destroy their whole fleet. Minji's face was hard. It doesn't need to destroy their whole fleet. It just needs to give us a chance. In space, the battle began. The hegemony fleet opened fire from maximum range. Energy beams and missiles filled the void. Earth's orbital platforms returned fire. The first exchanges lit up the darkness like a new sun being born. Ships died on both sides. But the hegemony had numbers. For every ship they lost, Earth lost 3. The math was grinding them down. We've lost the Alpha platform, reported the tactical officer. Beta platform is at 60% capacity. We're being pushed back. Daewon watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. It was going exactly as predicted. Exactly as planned. The hegemony thought they were winning. That was important. All ships, begin retreat pattern Delta, he ordered. Fall back toward Earth's orbit. Make it look desperate. Admiral Hyun Park's face appeared on the screen. He was too old for active combat now, but he commanded Earth's defenses from a command center on the moon. Day One, if you fall back any further, they'll have a clear shot at Earth's surface. I know, sir. Trust me, just a little further. The Earth fleet retreated. The hegemony pressed forward, smelling blood. Vrix watched from his flagship, satisfaction in his eyes. These humans had prepared well, but preparation meant nothing against overwhelming force. Their formations are breaking, his tactical officer reported. They're falling apart. Good, Vrix said. Press the attack. I want Earth's orbit secured within the hour. But something bothered him. A nagging doubt. Humans were clever. They had proven that. Why would they break formation so easily? Unless... Pull back the forward elements, Vrix ordered suddenly. This might be a trap. But it was too late. The Incheon and a strike group of 20 ships suddenly broke from the retreat pattern. They accelerated at maximum burn, diving through a gap in the hegemony formation. It was a suicide run. Everyone knew it. But they had one target, Vrix's flagship. All ships weapons free, Daewon ordered. Everything we have now. The strike group unleashed every weapon they carried, missiles, energy beams, kinetic rounds. The hegemony ships tried to intercept, but the attack was too sudden, too focused. 3 of Earth's ships died in the first wave of return fire. Then 5 more. Then another 8. But 4 ships made it through. The Incheon was one of them. 500 kilometers to the flagship, the helmsman reported. We're in range. Dr. Choi, we're ready, Daewon said into his communication system. In her bunker, Minji's hands moved across her controls. Uploading now. May God have mercy on us all. The virus they had built was based on 10 years of captured hegemony technology, 10 years of studying their computer systems, their protocols, their weaknesses. The Lyran refugees that Ghost Protocol had rescued had helped. They knew the hegemony's internal systems. They knew where the vulnerabilities were. The virus entered Vrix's flagship through a communication pulse. It was hidden in normal military traffic, undetectable, unstoppable. It spread through the hegemony command network like wildfire. Every ship, every system, every shield generator, And then, exactly as planned, it activated. Across the entire hegemony fleet, energy shields dropped. For 60 seconds, they would be vulnerable. Just 60 seconds. But in combat, 60 seconds was an eternity. All ships. Day 1 broadcast to the entire Earth fleet. Shields are down. Hit them now. Everything you have. This is our only chance. Earth's forces erupted. Every platform, every ship, every weapon. They had been holding back reserves for this moment. Now they unleashed everything. The hegemony fleet, caught completely by surprise, began to die. Ships that had been invincible moments before now burned and broke apart. The carefully organized formations collapsed into chaos. Rick stared at his screens in horror. How did they do this? His tactical officer was frantically trying to restore shields. The virus is in our entire network. It's preventing shield restart. We're defenseless. 30 seconds remaining. Minji counted down in her bunker. Make every shot count. But the hegemony weren't helpless. Vrix was a brilliant commander. Even in disaster, he adapted. All ships execute emergency scatter pattern. Use manual targeting.
Fire everything!
The battle became absolute chaos. Ships from both sides firing at point-blank range. Explosions everywhere. The void filled with debris and death. The Incheon took a direct hit. The ship shuddered. Alarms screamed. Half the bridge crew was killed instantly. Daewon was thrown from his chair. When he stood, blood ran from a cut on his forehead. Shields at 0, someone shouted. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. We're venting atmosphere. Keep firing, Daewon ordered. We don't need to survive. We just need to hurt them. Another hit. Then another. The Incheon was dying, but they kept firing. Every remaining weapon pointed at Vrix's flagship. 10 seconds. Minji's voice echoed through every Earthship. Captain Eunji Nam fought alongside the defense forces at the European orbital station. She had left Ghost Protocol to command regular troops. Now she watched the battle through her station's viewports, directing fire, coordinating with other platforms. We're hitting them hard, her tactical officer reported. At least 300 hegemony ships destroyed or disabled. But we've lost 60% of our fleet. It's enough, Eunji said. It has to be enough. Shields regenerating, the hegemony tactical officer reported to Vrix. 5 seconds until full capacity. But 5 seconds was too long. Daewon saw one final opportunity. The Incheon was finished. The ship was breaking apart. But they still had one weapon left. The ship itself. All hands abandon ship, Daewon ordered. This is the captain. Everyone to the escape pods, now. Sir, what are you doing? His executive officer asked. What needs to be done? Go, that's an order. The crew evacuated. Within seconds, Daewon was alone on the bridge. He took manual control of the helm. The ship barely responded. The engines were dying, but they still had enough power for one last action. He aimed the Incheon at Vrix's flagship and engaged maximum thrust. On the flagship, Vrix saw the Earthship accelerating toward him. Evasive maneuvers. But the flagship was too large, too slow. Daewon sat in the captain's chair as the Incheon plowed through space. He thought about his parents, about Eunji and Taiyang and Jae, about Dr. Choi and Admiral Park, about every human who had believed that they could stand against the galaxy's greatest military power. 3 seconds, he thought. That's all any fight really is. 3 seconds of courage. The Incheon impacted Vrix's flagship at full velocity. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface. It lit up the sky like a second sun. When the light faded, both ships were gone. Reduced to expanding clouds of debris, the hegemony fleet, now leaderless and battered, began to retreat. Earth's remaining forces pursued, destroying as many ships as they could. But eventually the enemy escaped into faster-than-light travel. Running for their lives, silence fell across Earth's orbit. The battle was over. Against all odds, humanity had won, but the cost was terrible. Billions dead, half the fleet destroyed.